we'll do again this summer. I'll be lining up what that tour looks like. It'll be about 4 months long. And lately we went out shopping for a replacement for Cinderella, so we could travel with more ease and a little more comfort. So we just put Cinderella 2.0 on deck for the next incursion. So it's going to be kind of fun, because it's going to make life a lot easier.
There's a lot of new folks joining us in this awakening time.
Clarify that.
Tell everybody what Cinderella is so they understand. People don't buy Cinderellas. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, good point. Cinderella is the tour bus. I purchased a Prevost bus back in 2021. Rather than leasing one for $30,000 a month, which I did in the first tour, it made sense to buy one. So we bought John Rich's bus, former bus, the Country Star. Anyways, that was built more for. There's 3 different kinds of coaches. Entertainer coaches have 12 bunks, 2 living rooms. Then you have star coaches. Star coaches are John Rich is going to have his own master bedroom, master bathroom, 6 bunks, and then a nice living area. And then you have the Prevost buses that are more RV built for luxury comfort without a whole lot of people. I won't be not traveling with as many people with me anymore. So we just decided to upgrade to a newer bus, fully automated, higher technology. Putting those things together to get on the road are pretty tough for me. So that's what Cinderella is. Cinderella got her name because she was being backed out of the shop with a new wrap on. Patriot Street Fighter wrap, and he sent me a video when that was backing out, and I grabbed the video, stuck it up on Telegram, and I just said, well, folks, it looks like Cinderella's ready for the dance. And ever since I said that, anybody around the country that knows what we do, my family, everybody, they always refer to the bus as Cinderella.
Well, there you go. There's the history of that. Thank you. Hey, so congratulations on getting your eyes set on some new wheels. Being on the road 4 months, and you know this better than I, is rather grueling. So as much safety and comfort as you can provide for your tour is definitely in order. To our audience, if you didn't catch it, Scott's very popular show on Monday, he interviewed me a week or so ago, and we were at it for a couple of hours. You want to watch that episode. It got a lot of interesting responses from a lot of folks. I'm going to get into some clarification for those people in a minute, but I encourage folks to go to Scott's platform on Rumble or on our platform and watch it, because a lot was unpacked there. Scott, you and I discussed when I was a guest on your show, to some extent, what I talked about in my monologue just a moment ago, the disruptors in the podcaster movement or the wafflers within the MAGA movement. If you were listening to my monologue just a moment ago, I talked about the shock clock is ticking. Be careful who you follow. Shock clock, we refer to a couple of shock clocks. One is a big event May 17th where the president will have a call to prayer. We have a shock clock on July 4th. There's a major triggering event. We're expecting a lot to happen, which will invite retaliation from the enemy as we make our moves right now. So that's the shock clock to an extent that's ticking. But any feedback or comments, you'd like to talk about a bit about the instability of the MAGA wafflers, I'll call it, particularly at this time. Any commentary on that?
I think, there are a number of people in the MAGA movement, also in the MAGA podcast movement, turning against Trump. They don't understand what's really happening here, and they're ticked about, no more wars. He ends 8 wars and begins a single operation, 2 operations, basically. I can share some really unbelievable information about the first one, Venezuela, if you like, in a minute, but from a high-level administration source. But yeah, it's no different than what we've seen from the beginning of the podcast explosion. There were a lot of people coming. The podcast world, as somebody described to me 6 years ago, is now the new celebrity world, right? Because podcasters have taken over the news. We are the news now, and we have hundreds of millions of people now watch podcasters. They don't watch the news anymore. And back then, there were a lot of people who were putting out BS, just sensational BS, couldn't validate, verify doing it for view count, podcasters that are getting in fights with other podcasters, which just, I can't even tell you how it incensed me, because we're responsible for bringing the people, through the darkness into this new evolution, into the light, and helping steady the ship. And a lot of disruptors out there, for their own selfish reasons, were creating, a lot of chaos for whatever reason. So we have a similar thing happening today, but it's now the actual pro MAGA podcasters who do not, they claim to understand the plan. They claim to have, went through all the intelligence that we did. But if you do go through the military back channel, the Q operation, all through those intelligence drops, I've said this from day one, people that comment on the drops and try to delegitimize them or whatever, or even have an opinion, I found that they fall in two classifications if they're oppositional. They're either intellectually lazy, meaning they have not read all of them, but they'll make comments on them, oppositional comments. They're either intellectually lazy because they haven't done that, or they're intellectually dishonest, meaning they maybe did go through all of them, but they find a contrary opinion to what either those drops are telling us or what all of us can see. And it's irrefutable now. It's irrefutable to the point for us back then. We had at least 500 proofs that it was a legitimate operation to expose the world as it was to us in its real, true fashion, which wasn't good, and to wake us up. And that was the purpose of it. And it certainly did that in spades. And then were those detractors that tried to obviously deny the reality of its efficacy, its efficiency, and its critical messaging to get us to where we need to be to prepare for this battle, this epic battle, which is really on the surface now and is going to culminate in the absolute dissolution of the global architecture that enslaved humanity. So I've never wavered a second, even in the beginning when we knew that the CIA and other, let's say, talking heads in mainstream media were going to start making fun of us, saying it's a conspiracy theory, all of that. I watched so many people back away. So many people wouldn't say Q on YouTube because their channel would be, they just avoided it at all costs. And I never understood that. You either believe what you believe and you stand in truth, or you don't. I mean, my whole introduction of my show is the whole Q operation. It's at least focused on that Q op. So why these MAGA folks are turning, because they see things that appear to be real. They don't understand many things are staged. They're staged not for us. They're staged for the Walking Dead to get their attention to try to wake them up. And there's one staging that happened in the last number of months that would blow people's minds, and I'll share it if you want to, but just to show you how these operations are staged for a specific reason, then you can develop the confidence that this is real and it's critically necessary in the fashion they're doing it to get us to where we need to be to prepare for the new world.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to pedal back to that staged operation and have you talk about that. And I'm going to pedal back to something you alluded to a moment ago on Venezuela, because those are mystery sandwiches and cliffhangers now, and we'd like to hear about that. But before we do, so I don't get piled in here, I want to mention feed your narrative that you just talked about. For those that are new and, coming aboard, Q is can be defined as the greatest open source military intelligence operation of our time that was dropping information for putting people out on a quest to dig and research on their own to get to the truth. And a lot of truths and some disinformation by design was published. But the bottom line is, just to get off the subject of Q, is your commander-in-chief, we're at war, folks. You and me are the target. Remember, Trump's just in the way. You and me are the target. And we are on America. I don't care what state you're in. That ground is the battlefield. Okay? So Q is the operation. It's a military operation. Derek Johnson's told us all about that, connecting all the executive orders and the Ps and the law of all manual updates and so forth. So to get off this Q subject, President Trump, how many times has President Trump said 17? Someone actually compiled a video, and it was like 5 minutes long of 200 different appearances where Trump won 17. I've been to the White House 17 times. 17 times to the White House? Yeah. And then the air cue where the president did this, dozens, if not hundreds of times, right, at the rallies. Then there's the president himself retruthing, retweeting, reposting on social media other people's posts that depict the president himself with Q plus in his hand and other Q related posts. I don't know how many dozens of times the president has done that. So if you're calling people that have been deep in the trenches, taking the incoming, like me and Scott and others over these years, Q-tards, well, we're in good company because your president is a Q-tard as well. But anyway, enough of that. We are going to, folks, I know you want to hear about the economy. This is a little bit different opening because we have Scott here who brings a wealth of other experiences and information to the table. We're going to jump into the financial matters and get Scott to weigh in on that in a moment. And I also would like to, if you want to go there, I want to talk about, if you do, if you don't, I understand, a little more in depth about Rachel Maddow and Alan Dershowitz, because when you and I were on your platform talking, a lot of the feedback that came to me in the form of questions was, I didn't know about that with Scott. What are you talking about? What happened? So if you're so inclined, we can fill in the blanks, give it some light of day for those folks. But before we do, talk with me about what you just said a moment ago, a staged setup that you want to bring to our attention. Let's go there.
I'll be as quick as I can. It might divert our real attention on the financial system shifts that are coming, but I'll throw this out there. This is coming directly from a high-level Trump advisor. I don't talk to this person directly. They will talk through my contact to me, and this is a pretty, both of them have a very big wingspan influence-wise, financially in their chosen professions, but worth a lot of money. Anyway, so when my contact was calling this source a high-level Trump advisor for the last six years, said, I'm going to be talking to her today. Do you have any specific questions? I said, yes, I have one specific question. I believe, and indicators show this, but I want to know from her, are we going to be restoring the original public? Get off the phone, called me back about half an hour, 40 minutes later. He said, are you sitting down for this? I was already sitting. I said, yeah. Well, he said, to the question you asked, are we going back to the original republic? Her answer was absolutely. Second thing was this. I have not truly been shocked about anything in this operation, the different things that have happened that would blow our minds. But this one was the one that I'm glad I was sitting down, because I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Holy Mary, Mother of God. So these are the two of the biggest things I got from that information drop. Number one, he said the Venezuela operation never happened. It was all staged, all stagecraft. Maduro has been in military custody since 2020. He's been giving up everybody and everything. Everybody, they have dead to rights, pinned to the wall on all the election theft, all the narco dollars going to the 60 different U.S. senators, including Republicans, on the payroll. Man, they've got it all. But that operation, as I've been told, didn't happen. It was staged, part of the wake-up. Right down to the Congressional Medal of Honor winner, who was apparently the supposed helicopter pilot that brought the Spec Ops team in, took 4 rounds in his legs, probably. I doubt it was anti-aircraft fire, because that nobody could survive one of those, probably small arms. And he, because of his heroic actions, he had the Congressional Medal of Honor wrapped around him at the State of the Union. He said he was an actor, all part of the show. And that one floored me. And knowing that Maduro has been in custody since 2020, the Q operation told us from the very beginning, learn to read our comms. Learn to read our comms, the way they communicate. So again, if you're looking at these comms, let's look at the State of the Union. What did you have? The Democrats committing suicide in front of the whole world because they refused to honor people who had been raped, who had been trafficked, who had been families whose loved ones are murdered by illegals whenever they'd be introduced, and the whole chamber would stand up, clapping and honoring these people. Even Royce, the Korean War pilot, shot down 6 MiGs out of 7 MiG-15s in an inferior aircraft. 38-minute dogfight, greatest accomplishment in history of dogfighting. Got the Congressional Medal of Honor. That was real. I've been talking about with his people for the last few years. We're going to interview him, but that was real. But these other things apparently were staged. When the Democrats were sitting there as they were, like they would not commit suicide in front of the world, which is what they did, because a lot of Democrats have jumped ship. The Jesse Jackson funeral, same thing, staged. Obama attacking Trump and the MAGA movement during, quote unquote, a ceremony where you're supposed to honor this man, which I couldn't quite honor him, but took it over and made it political. There was a lot of black people in America who were so pissed. They said, we're done. We're done with the Democrats. That's BS. Another thing. The confirmation that Charlie Kirk, as we had stated early on when that happened, Charlie Kirk is alive as we are. And he is in Greenland. That's where he is protected in Greenland. I'm thinking maybe the ice base in Greenland. And also, she confirmed that Erica Kirk, the true Erica Kirk, the real one, has been in Gitmo for some time. So those are massive bombs. And you say, why would they do this? Well, first of all, look at Maduro. After they captured him, in an operation like this guy's going to be chained in his waist, chained on his wrists, chained in his feet, and he's probably going to have a jumpsuit on. He's going to be shuffled, likely a bag over his head, a burlap sack, whatever. You didn't see any of that. That's outside all protocol when they capture high-value targets. They show him in a sweatsuit, a different change of clothes like 3 times. In some of these, he's walking along, kind of a smile, looking at his quote-unquote captors, his body escorts, and he's like he's talking to them as friends. One of them, he's doing a thumbs up. All those things are like, wait a minute. We saw that happen. Like, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense, right? So I just thought those, again, now that I got this information, those are more comms. So to know how absolutely surreal this operation is to accomplish what? The takedown of the global satanic realm that runs the planet? No, that is not hard at all. They could wipe that off the planet. If they did, without waking up to humanity, to what has truly happened to us as a human species and the planet, and hiding our true angelic power, which is a massive threat to them, without the Great Awakening, I don't care who they capture, who they take out, how they scrub the planet of any evil. If the human species does not transcend this dream spell that has a ceiling right here, if we don't transcend that, we'll be back in the same position 100 years from now, 50 years from now. We will never recover from it. The satanic realm will have captured this existence and it'll be all over. The Great Awakening is the most critical aspect of this entire war. And if we don't achieve that, we've won nothing.
Well, thank you, Scott. And for those that, some folks are high-fiving you right now, I'm certain of that you've shared that information. Other folks are probably put a big question mark over it. I'll help with the question mark. The question mark is simply this. President Trump, for those that don't know, and I know a lot of, our loyal followers know all this, but we're trying to get everybody up to speed. So with that in mind, our president, Donald J. Trump, Commander-in-Chief, I don't know, you lose count how many times he has said on camera, live, or in pre-recorded sessions, and certainly in social media, in writing, hundreds of times, central casting, central casting, central casting. What is central casting? Okay, he taught, even when Kevin Warsh, our new soon-to-be Fed chairman, he said, you're going to love everything about this guy. When you look into the guy, you don't love anything. But what is the president saying? Oh, you're going to love the results we're going to get from this. There's going to be great things happening. Kevin Warsh, central casting, end quote. President put that in writing on Truth Social. So to validate Scott's information, whether it's all exactly accurate or not, Scott and I don't know, but good sources are good sources. I would say it's not a far stretch. Any of the things that Scott said, I never fell for the Charlie Kirk event. That was an easy one right out of the gate. But folks, you know what? If what you've just heard seems a little unreal, do some homework. And we've already done the shows when the events occurred. As far as the Venezuela thing goes, Ricardo Bossi, and my audience loves Ricardo. I do Bossi briefs every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and he joins us for 2 years now on the Global Defense World panel. Bossi is on record, at least with me, stating the Venezuela operation wasn't happening in real time, and that would certainly feed into the narrative that Scott just said, and then Scott just piled a little extra sauce on top of that. Listen, folks, we're going to move on to some other subjects, but you got to question the narratives. You've got to do your own research. And as I said in my monologue, if a podcaster is unwilling to say something that the person knows to be the truth from validated good sources, that's the podcast you want to listen to. People that are willing to take the shots and willing to take the arrows for saying things that are not commonly known. But isn't that what we're looking for right now, folks? We're in a quest for truth. That's the bottom line. And I don't know, somebody once said the truth will set you free, tongue in cheek here. So let's talk about some more attacks that Scott endured while revealing some truths. And then, folks, we're going to get into Scott's mind on the global financial reset. And then we'll bring our guest, Brandon Clark, on as well. So before we get there, you're going to find this a story. A lot of folks don't know the details of it or even knew about it. And I learned about that, Scott, from some of my audience asking me what happened to Scott. So take us back, if you will, and go as far, wherever you'd like to go. I was kind of, I don't want to say by your side, but I was there while it was unfolding, and you and I had some discussions, so I had a front row seat to your debacle. You were hit hard by MSNBC's Rachel Maddow, followed up by another hard hit by Alan Dershowitz. And God bless Alan Dershowitz for standing by the Constitution when it comes to supporting the president on some of the challenges that he's had. But there's a whole other side of Alan Dershowitz. But what I'd like to talk about is what incoming did you take from Rachel to Alan, how that impacted the Reawaken tour, and your dialogues with the Trumps.
These attacks by Rachel Maddow were coming at me for a year, about every week before a Reawaken event, because people were trying to shut that down everywhere Clay Clark went, lost venues. He had to book 3 to make sure somebody actually stuck. A lot of cowards in this country, even patriots that are quote unquote patriots that are cowards. I don't consider them patriots because they back down. I started to, back in 2020 when I started my radio show, I started laying out the history of the Khazarian Mafia. You know, it's interesting because back in that day, politics and the whole evolution of this for 30 years, I've never heard the term Khazarian Mafia. I didn't know who they were. And I stumbled on Gordon Duff's research, and I started going down that rabbit hole. Then I started laying it out to my audience in 2020, who the Khazarian Mafia are, how they got control of the planet. And then now it's a common term. I mean, anybody, everybody, people on your show, the Colonels, are talking about Khazarian Mafia. But it started to strike that chord, and it was identifying who these real killers are on the planet that seize control of everything. The central banks seized control of the royal families, bred their way in, murdered their way in to get full control. They run Washington, D.C. So anyways, over the years, people would ask me to come on. Hey, would you come on and tell us explain the Khazarian Mafia? My audience, one of those was Alpha Warrior. Back in 2023, I believe it was, I was one morning, I was on my bus parked over here getting ready to head out on an event to the Trump Doral, that Reawaken event. And I got a call from, or I got something from Alpha. Thanks for making me famous. I'm like, what are you talking about? He sends me the clip of Rachel Maddow, this coming up to event, attacking me on MSNBC. And what she would do, she would take the word, where I'd say Khazarian Mafia, she'd pull out Khazarian Mafia, stick in the word Jews. So I'm saying the Jews. I never talk like that. And they're not Jewish or have ancient Hebrew DNA. Anyways, they're Khazarian bloodline. They're fake. Call them fake Jews if you want. They're hiding behind Judaism. Anyways, I get that call. I thought, okay, Alpha. We kind of laughed about it. A few minutes later, I get a call from Clay Clark. Scott, would you do General Flynn and myself a favor? Would you denounce Hitler? Right? Because in that certain segment, I said, Adolf Hitler was fighting the same people back then as we're fighting today, the Rothschild central bankers, which is true and provable. Well, Maddow then basically made that as if I'm a Hitler lover and all that. So Dershowitz then comes out. He sees this, and I didn't know this. All I knew is that day when it happened, I said to Clay, yeah, I can do whatever I'll denounce it, whatever you want from the stage. I kind of had an idea that I thought, this is kind of insulting. I'm not even going to really address and say, what's this about? So I have our buses downtown Dallas. I got my team ready to board the bus. I get a call from Clay Clark. Says, "Hey, Eric Trump pulled you from the Trump Doral." I'm like, "What?" We had this discussion. That led to me, Eric and I having a phone call. Eric just saying, Scott, I'm asking you to kind of work with me here. And I got a lot of Jewish people who are threatening to walk out off their job because they believe this stuff, this crap. Anyway, so we had a discussion. And of course, I agreed and said I can acquiesce to that because I don't want to have them successfully use me or Patriot Street Fighter to try to damage the Trump campaign or anything. But I found out the next day what really happened was Alan Dershowitz told the whole world in a 30-minute vicious attack on me, called me a horrible Nazi and anti-Semite, which made him a fool because my life was saved by an Ashkenazi Jew. The Ashkenazi, I guess, are the true Khazarians. A wonderful man took me in after I was killed in a motorcycle crash, left paralyzed, destroyed, ended up homeless, crippled, and penniless 8 months after the crash, refused a disability check. A very dear friend of mine insisted that I live with him. He was disabled in a motorized chair. I've known him for years. I watched him lose his abilities that way. And it made his life safer as well. So I had a place to live, bathroom, bedroom, and I lived with my good friend Alan. If I could fight back and overcome paralysis and walk again. So an Ashkenazi Jew saved my life, but I'm an anti-Semite. Well, that's how that all came down. I was excused from the Reawaken tour. And the thing that was bizarre about it, and I think arguably or maybe inarguably, Patriot Street Fighter was the biggest ticket seller. Tickets, I didn't get any money for it, but ticket sales are the biggest draw to Patriot Street Fighter or to the Reawaken Tour. That was told to me by the inside people at Clay's organization. You're the biggest draw for the Reawaken Tour, which is flattering. I mean, I thought, what an honor. Anyway, so yeah, they removed me from that tour, and I could have gone public and rained a shitstorm down again on an unfair situation, but I didn't because I felt what's critical is the mission. It is not Scott McKay. It is not me leveling the playing field. It is staying on focus because the focus for me has always been Washington, D.C., the Khazarian-controlled military wing of the cabal. Stay focused on the political crime scene, which is every level of politics, local, state, federal, in this nation. That's the target. I will never be derailed. I've had people stolen hundreds of thousands from me. I could dice them up on here on my channel. I say nothing. I stay focused on the target. And but Alan Dershowitz, I didn't need to attack Alan Dershowitz because I knew the world would find out that he's on the Epstein list. I knew the world would find out 14-year-old girls have accused Alan Dershowitz of raping them on Epstein Island. I knew that would settle itself out, and that's what happened and why I was removed from the Reawaken America tour. I will still say that I think that was one of the most important things that happened in the nation was a tour. I commend General Flynn. I commend Clay Clark for doing it. Clay Clark's paid a price for it as well, and I'm honored, and it was a great privilege to have been on that tour. So even though it turned out a little differently than I probably should have, but that's kind of how that all went down. And at the end of the day, as I say, John, you're victorious when the other side runs the white flag of surrender up the pole by pulling out the anti-Semite card. It always seems to be their last hurrah when they've lost the debate. He's an anti-Semite. It always works, right? Well, I don't think it did because Rachel Madcow's off the news plane, and Alan Dershowitz has been exposed for whatever Alan Dershowitz might have been involved in at Epstein Island.
Well, thank you for sharing that story, and I think you handled it brilliantly. That was quite a disruption at the time. And folks, to our audience, can you imagine, because I watched both clips, I think it was her entire show or a healthy segment of her show, and Dershowitz, it was his show, 30 minutes, Scott McKay. Imagine these high-profile mainstream media folks, especially Dershowitz, he's been around, 100 years, and we interviewed Alan Dershowitz prior to that event at American Media Periscope for his support of the Constitution as it was in Trump's favor. But back to your debacle and situation, to our audience, imagine seeing on Rachel's show clips of Scott, sound bites on mainstream media that, you got their attention, all right. And of course, it was a cut and paste botch up job. I know Scott McKay. Okay, he's not an anti-Semite, and you're exactly right by stating what you said. They pull that out at the very end. The race card or the anti-Semite card, they got to pull these out when all else fails. But you know what? To your point, look where Rachel is today, and Alan Dershowitz's name shows up in the Epstein files. Now, I do want to say this. I don't know. I came across some information a long time ago when all this broke originally, years before the Epstein files were released, that Dershowitz's response when it came out, at least in podcaster circuit, that he was at Epstein Island, he didn't deny it. He said, yeah, I was there, but I didn't take my pants off. I mean, that's the quote that I saw. Now, I didn't validate it and said it, but one doesn't know. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. And congratulations for you taking the high road for the movement versus doing what you could have done. And so congratulations on that. Anyway, a little piece of Scott's journey. Let's talk about it's the global financial reset. I want to jump right into that now. Scott, from a 40,000-foot view, what are we resetting? What are we severing and disconnecting from? And just what are we heading into in terms of banking and finances and currency, to the best of your knowledge from your research and from the people you've been interviewing? How could you encapsulate what it is we are resetting?
Well, we are moving from a world of currency into a world of money. Real money. Currency is a fiat dollar, a fictitious piece of paper with ink that has a perceived value based on nothing. It's all perception. They say perception's 9/10 of the law. That's true. If you believe the dollar has value, you're going to use it. If you're going to believe that it has value, you're going to take it from somebody else in exchange for a good or a service you're going to provide to them. That's simply a form of currency. You could make it anything. Piece of paper could be a cell phone cover. It could be anything. A bottle cap. If you believe that has value, you can use that as currency. The difference between currency and money is money has real hard value across all sectors of interpretation among the human species, which is what? Rare and precious metals, gold, silver, things like that. People say, well, they only have value because we say they do. No, I'd say the most valuable resources on the planet are resources. The most valuable resource on the planet is the health, the physical health of the human being. You don't have physical health, you have no wealth whatsoever. You can have all the money in the world. If you don't have your physical health, you have nothing, right? Well, correct. What have they kept from us over eons? The health properties of gold and silver. Ingesting, nano amounts of silver or gold. Most people still don't know this. We learn it from the secret space programs. Why other, non-terrestrial species want access to gold? We know there's like lakes of liquid gold inside the planet. All these have tremendous health benefits. That's a whole different discussion. But it has a level of value. And so that's the world we're moving away from. The central banking system. Central banking is not a federal operation. It's not a sovereign operation of all the countries or states. It's really a crime scene, nothing more than a crime scene. Nothing should be centralized. If you want to have hands or power or anything in the hands of we the people, it has to be decentralized, not a central location. Why is centralization dangerous on any level for any aspect of human life, even outside of money? I'll give you an example. The centralization of energy. We don't have it yet. We're going to access to 0 point energy. There's enough energy in the space of the size of this cup, just around my head, that can power Dallas for the next 5 years. This much matter in size or out, just in the ethers, to power the whole city for 5 years. Why do we need to have oil or coal or gas, which means what? You're centralizing it. We're destroying the planet in many ways, digging up whatever elements we are, lighting them on fire, all right, turning turbines that would create energy, and then stringing the planet or this city with this ugliness of poles and wires. I mean, look at India and places like that where you see in a city millions of wires going across the street because it's rudimentary in how they have their structures for electrical distribution. It's ridiculous. We have it on a lesser level, but these are ugly backdrops. We're used to seeing them, but when you walk into a community that has all underground utilities, you don't notice it until someday you look how clean the infrastructure is. Like, you don't notice all these ugly poles and wires. Why do we have to have power produced at a central location and ship 30 miles across distances to somebody's home, and 40% of it dissipates into transmission, but you got to pay for all 100%, and only 60% of it reaches you? That's the downside of centralization of anything. When you could put a vase on your table about this big, right? That's using the theory of magnetism, which we can't find magnetism education anywhere in any university or any high school. A theory, anything, get a degree in magnetism. Magnetism can create boundless, infinite energy, right? So we don't have that because the power and controllers on the planet want to control all of it and then distribute it out to you for a great price. Centralized banking is the same way. One location where all the money originates and gets distributed out to the people. Okay, how do you decentralize it? Each government or nation has its own sovereign currencies controlled by we the people, and that's what we're headed back to. We're headed back to the sovereignty of this nation, sovereignty of states. Even in places like Texas, they've passed laws in the legislature that gold, real gold, can be validated or honored as a type of currency in the state of Texas. So that's where we're headed on a macro scale globally. That's a micro example of just one state, how they're saying we're going to go back to a type of, I'm muddying the waters by calling it currency, but a means of exchange, something of value like gold on that level, even at the state level. So that's where we're headed in terms of decentralization of money, and we move into this quantum financial system and architecture that's driven by military intelligence combined with off-planet, off-world technologies. Another big disclosure coming. Trump is dropping little hints. We're going to be learning about interactions with non-terrestrial, much higher level of intelligence species that we are, off-planet and on-planet, a new revelation. So those things are coming as well. But this type of technology makes it bulletproof, whereby our means of exchange will have real value, whether it's some type of crypto. I don't really know what that looks like completely, but it'll be anchored in real resources on the planet that have value, whether it's the sovereign fund of the United States that's going to benefit all the people. All the oil here is going to benefit the people, not just big oil companies and executives. It's going to benefit everybody. How do I know? Because an executive order Trump wrote, anybody involved in human trafficking, human rights abuses, they lose all their assets, personal, corporate, you name it. And these corporations that have been conducting these kind of things against humanity are all being seized by the alliance powers, taken over, and those resources and that wealth is going to be distributed evenly for the people on the planet. That's what's happening to the financial system. It's not just a decentralization of money, it's a decentralization of all controls on the planet. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you, Scott. And, President Trump recently was asked, what are you going to do with all that oil you got from Venezuela? And he kind of confidently and somewhat flippantly said, I don't know, I might sell it. Maybe I'll put it in the sovereign wealth fund, which is for we the people, where we're going to be getting our, quote, dividend checks from, and so forth and so on. G. Edward Griffin, many of our viewers know who G. Edward Griffin is, and for those that don't, you want to buy and pick up and read the Bible on the Federal Reserve, known as The Creature from Jekyll Island, huge bestseller, multiple reprints and so forth. I had the privilege and opportunity to work with Mr. G many, many years ago under my Save America Foundation out of Clearwater, Florida. We also did a convention. He was one of our keynotes in Tampa as well as in Grand Junction, Colorado, where I once lived. And He's a legend. He's done a lot more work besides the creature from Jekyll Island on cancer, on water fluoridation, and many things. He's a legend. I think he's 90 or 95 today. Let's put up an image and have Scott talk with us about this image. To my producer, this is Mr. G. Edward Griffin, and you can see Patriot Street Fighter Scott McKay. And for those that don't know, that's Sasha Stone. Talk with us about this moment. This is a great moment to be seated next to Mr. G.
Yes, Sasha and I a few weeks ago were at Sue Wong's a good friend of ours, the fashion designer that designs gowns for the Academy Awards, nominees, whatever. She's a close friend of mine and Sasha's. So she has a place in Malibu that we stay at when we have our rendezvous in Los Angeles. It's a great place to hang out. A beautiful house on the hill overlooking the water of Malibu. So we're close to G. Edward Griffin. Sasha's known him for years. He's visited Sasha's Bali compound and has been part of the work Sasha's done over the years. That relationship, of course, led to my introduction to G. Edward Griffin probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. So this is the second time we've actually been to his home visiting him and just sitting there in his front office and just catching up on what he's working on, the books he's working on, etc. It's just a great experience and opportunity to be truly in the presence of greatness. And I don't think what I love about Mr. Griffin is that his humility is just overwhelming. I mean, what he's done for the world in exposing how this all came about, the Federal Reserve, the criminals that, paid off the politicians to allow them to create a private bank among 13 families and basically just rob us blind for over 100 years. I told him, I said, Mr. Griffin, I said, what I think you're going to see with your work, that's the single work of the creature from Jekyll Island, it is going to come back around like a boomerang, and it's going to reverberate throughout all time, because when we get to this point where we get back to real sovereign money, that will be the axis with which this energy frequency spun on of exposure to alert the world for many years now of how they did it, what they did, and show the illegitimacy of the system they put in place. And he's the man who shouldn't be alive today. Most people like this are taken out when they expose something of this magnitude, because you're talking about a global destruction machine on the human species and the human soul. And he showed the world the truth about the Federal Reserve, and people realize, oh, it's not even federal. It has nothing to do with federal. It's a corporation, a for-profit corporation that's stripping us to the bone of our spiritual as well as asset wealth in this world. And he upended the whole thing. He set the conversation in motion with his book. And I said, it is going to be discussed far into history long after you're not here on this planet. He thought that was an overwhelming statement or observation. But I could see the gears turning in his head like, wow. And I said that to him because I want him to understand how critical and how important and valuable that work will be to not just the world, but the future of the world, exposing something of that magnitude.
Without question, and a great point that God has protected him and kept him alive, because a lot of folks that revealed what he revealed in such a big way because of the huge success of his work, normally they don't stick around like the 140 some odd folks that exposed the Clintons. But Mr. G is, I said this before with Ricardo Bossi, I'll say it again. He should get that medal that the president gives to the public instead of Harvey Weinstein and Ellen DeGeneres and Tom Hanks and Bruce Springsteen and all those characters, because those are all the ones, ironically, all on the Epstein list that Obama gave the Freedom Award to. Mr. G, I would hope President Trump considers that because Mr. G is getting up there in age, and that would certainly brighten up his day. And well earned, well deserved. The Creature from Jekyll Island. I know most of our followers understand Mr. G and his work. For those that don't, pick it up. Creature from Jekyll Island, Georgia, here in the States, where the folks, some of the folks met. In fact, it informed the Federal Reserve concept there. And it's a tourist site. You can go there, pay some money, look at the room they destroyed the world in, and so forth. And that whole story is amazing. I've told it a million times in great detail. But we're going to wind down our segment with you, Scott. It's been great talking with you. I want to ask you a couple of more things. You mentioned before we went live about that debt clock, debtclock.org, I think it is. And I've been looking at that for 10, 15 years. It's changed quite a bit, and you know a thing or two about that. What can you reveal about the debt clock as it relates to, the financial matters of the day?
Well, it's amazing because when we talk about how is that, what's it represent in terms of what's coming into change. I mean, I'm looking right now, you go to usdebtclock.org, and right here in the screen is one of the memes right in the middle, the return of the people's money. Interest 0 to 3%, $5 trillion in savings per year. Below it shows the end of the banking age. It's showing all the banks and with an X through it. Interest from 6 to 28%, an X through that. $6 trillion it takes out of us per year for the high interest. It's an X out of that. If you look at the debt clock, you go down below that. In the lower right corner, it shows existing wealth in the United States per citizen, and it shows total hidden wealth to the left of that, over $211 trillion and counting. And then to the left of that is recaptured assets at the tune of $8 trillion right now and continuing to grow by the tens of thousands a second. So they are recapturing all the stolen wealth of the world, and it's going to be repatriated to we the people. And there's just a whole lot of bombs they've been dropping on there. There's one here that's showing, it's still sitting up here, and it shows the Great Jubilee, which is pretty exciting. All kinds of cool stuff. The death of the Fed, and it's just endless. And I've only discovered this because I've been doing a series with the Royal House of We the People, Jim McCrank, Anna Marins in Brazil, and Mike Likens, and they've been studying this stuff along with the Q operation and many other things in depth. And so it intrigued me so much over a month ago. I said, we got to do a series on this. This is a huge calm that the people need to see so they can start becoming enthusiastic about what's coming to this planet and to the human species.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. What's the official domain name? Because I didn't get it right. Can you tell the public what that is?
Yeah, it's usdebtclock.org. usdebtclock.org.
I've got a link up to that on both of my websites, but you can go straight there. And years ago, when I used to follow it, my early days with Dr. Kirk Elliott, back in 08, 9, 10, in that space, it didn't have all that stuff, all that language on there, all those things you just focused on. It didn't have any of that, folks. All it had was the things that you standardly see, all those numbers changing on how that now 39 trillion, back then it was probably 9 trillion, and then how it's broken down. That's all the debt clock had. So whomever is behind this debt clock is very well connected and very well, minimally, if not very well connected, at least very well informed, because everything that you just rattled through from a 40,000 view of what is on that clock, we have broken down granularly on this show, week over week, with the great other great guests that we've had, and I'm glad that you highlighted some of those big aspects of that debt clock, because that stuff wasn't there years ago. And it's a great source to give all of us a 40,000 foot view of what is in fact happening. It is the capturing back, seizing back, and we've been doing this for many years. Lynn Wood reported it, as you remember, Scott, when we were at the first Rema Bible College, Clay Clark, General Flynn Reawakened Tour event, when Lynn Wood went out on the stage and told us all, we took all that gold out of the Vatican with all those airplanes, right? And everyone thought he was crazy. Of course, everyone knows it now. But what that dead clock you just highlighted on, Scott, is speaking to is the big picture, the capturing back of the variety in various ways that assets have been stolen, and then putting them in proper places for the benefit of those it was stolen from, which is us here and other countries in the world, which we will be further assisting them through what has occurred. And winding this down, Scott, what does the golden age mean to you? It's a term that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's got spiritual connotations. It's got religious connotations. It's got financial connotations. It's got the framing of a new vision, a new world that the president is going to be helping us usher in. What does it mean to you?
I think the golden age, as we look at the apparatus or architecture that's being deconstructed, the enslavement architecture, the banking system, the corporations masquerading as governments all over the world, corporations masquerading as courts. Every court has a Dun and Bradstreet number because they are a for-profit business. So it's a banking system, law enforcement. Again, corporations masquerading as law enforcement. All that's going to go away in the original republic, which we're coming back to. Number one. Number two, we are going to be basically rebuilding Eden as our Creator had intended. However you see our Creator, most of us believe this is a planet of scarcity. Absolutely not. It's a planet of abundance, and it's the criminals who got control of it all to make this experience in this realm to be horrible. That's how, all the tunnel systems underneath the surface of the planet everywhere. When the Vatican was taken down in that firefight, special operations, I think it was 2018, I saw some video footage of that firefight at the Vatican, special operations taking it down. These tunnels go over the world. The one that goes, as I was told, from the Vatican to Jerusalem, I think it's 1,500 miles long, if I'm not mistaken. But inside that, one of these tunnels going to Jerusalem, again, these are the numbers I was given, that there is gold stacked 60 meters wide, 40 meters high for 150 miles. That is hard to fathom. Even if it's not that big, there's so much gold in that tunnel. And we're not talking the Philippines. We're not talking the Asian dragon families where that stuff's hidden. Mm-hmm. How the hell could we have lived on a planet where there's starvation, disease, and poverty with this much wealth? That's what they did. They captured it all. It's been recaptured. 650 C-5A Galaxy plane loads. I've been in a C-5A. It's the second largest military transporter in the world next to Russia's transporter. It can carry 5 M1 Abrams tanks in that bay and a shit ton of soldiers. It's massive. And they bring 650 plane loads back and they repatriate it. So you look at all of that. And that's what's going to be used to distribute to all of humanity. This is a planet of abundance. If you take away the scarcity and you make abundance available to everybody, let's say it's somewhat abrupt over a period of few years, yeah, it's going to be chaotic. People are it's going to be a jubilee, dancing in the streets. People are going to, it's funny. When you have any measure of wealth, I've had both, right? More not. When you have excessive money, it's amazing how much shit you do not need. I don't need a Lamborghini or a Bentley. I can buy one, no problem, pay cash for it if I want. I have no interest in any of that stuff. I mean, the things that we think we want, it's like the girl. You really want that girl, and she's easy to capture, her heart and soul. It's really not all that important to you anymore, right? That's just all these things. People want what they think they can't have. It's just the nature of the human species. And when you can easily have it, you don't have as great of a desire, right? What makes it valuable and desirable is scarcity, right? If they had a Super Bowl every weekend, nobody would show up. Why? It's only once a year right now, and very few people can afford it. But if everybody could afford it, they have one every weekend, you're not going to have very many people show up because it's not scarce. This just doesn't have the value. Reverse that, invert it to everything on the planet is incredibly abundant. In the matrix mindset, the dream spell they put us in, the matrix mindset makes us covet material things. Why does a car become, oh, that's just my car? When you have it, that's my new car. Don't get close to it. Don't breathe on it. Don't let any dust blow on it. Right? It's my new car. 2-3 years later, it's just my car. Everything loses its luster. Everything material in this world loses its luster eventually. What never does is that amazing internal feeling, that vibration, that Christ-conscious resonant field that affects us in the ways that cause our body to vibrate. Happiness, excitement, enthusiasm, love, whatever. Celebrating Rudy's victory on the football field that gives us this amazing happiness and vibration. That's the one thing in the human species that never, ever, ever gets old. It never wears out. Laughter never just becomes laughter. It still has that high vibration experience, tears in the eyes, joy. That never becomes just joy. It's what we always seek. Ayn Rand said it best. Ayn Rand was the 20th century philosopher, objectivist philosopher, the most prominent philosopher of the 20th century. She said, man's only moral purpose in life is his own happiness. Man's only moral purpose is his own happiness. People think, well, that's selfish. No, it is not. Why? Because my happiness is driven by many things. Giving a homeless person on the street money, paying for a check at restaurants, and I do it all the time. I see somebody, it strikes me, I make sure the waitress, do not tell them who did it. Even after I leave, that guy sitting over there, don't say a word. Somebody noticed them and felt the desire to buy their lunch. I do it all the time because I can. That's what happiness is. That's the kind of thought process we, as angelic beings in a human form, that's what we really are. And when you have abundance and you see somebody that doesn't have it, you want to give it away. I know from experience. You want to give it away. You want to share the joy of that with everybody. That's what's coming to this world.
Wow, so well said, and a great high note to end our segment. Scott McKay, what's the best place for those that many of our audience follows you? For those that don't and are learning of you, where's the best place to zero in on you and your work?
You can simply go to patriotstreetfighter.com, and for validation of anything that has to do with my personal name, Scott McKay, or Patriot Street Fighter, the safest way to find me on any video channel, because you'll see the links for Rumble. I'm not on YouTube. I'm one of the people that still can't get back on YouTube after 39 channels shut down. So you can find my Rumble link there. You can find my X link there. You can find whatever links that are part of my social media, Facebook. That's where you find them. Anywhere else you see me popping up, it's highly likely not me. It's some scumbag trying to get money out of you, try to sell you QFS accounts, donate to my non-existent, foster orphanage in Canada. I didn't know I had one until somebody told me they donated to it. All that nonsense out there has nothing to do with me. Just go to patriotstreetfighter.com. That's where you can find my Rumble channel and where you primarily will find anything I do.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Scott. You got great perspectives and always unafraid to speak the truth as you know it to be. You've got good connections and you've done phenomenal work. And we all appreciate you. I'm getting some texts. Hey, Scott's on. We love Scott. We love Scott. And I'm sure our channel is Sandy, who's running the chats, if you will, on some of the platforms, probably has a lot of great things to report to me later, as I would expect. But anyway, thank you very much, Scott, for your perspectives, for your work. Stay safe in the new bus on the road. Enjoy the tour. Wake people up. And to our audience, Scott and I, as we mentioned, we're coming full circle in our episode with Scott, known each other for many years now. And so I'll probably be a guest on Scott's platform another time or two this year, and he back here. So stay tuned, especially when we're going to have some dark moments yet, as bad as it's been. I'm talking about all of us collectively as a nation. From all the experts that I interview, and I'm sure Scott as well, have warned us about that NDEs and near-death experience has not yet arrived. So Scott and I will be reporting separately and perhaps together at stellar moments.
Absolutely.
And also on the other side of it, after July 4th, when things are real celebratory and we can shift narratives a little bit into some of the creation of the new world that we're going to be heading into that Scott talked about, you'll see Scott and I together, if nothing else, just to celebrate it together on air. But anyway, thank you very much, Scott. We all love you. Patriot Street Fighter, as Scott would say, Patriot Street Fighter, out. Thank you very much, Scott. All right. Here's a quote from Juan O'Savin, and we're going to bring on Brandon Clark in just a moment to talk about anyone that's preparing for retirement or already in retirement. This is the segment you need to listen to. And I'm setting it up with a statement from our good friend Juan. This is a quote from Juan O'Savin. In all these things, we're going to have to fight in this reset of America. The war in the financial realm is going to be the greatest of them all. Juan O'Savin. Now, for those of you that don't know, Juan's been serving this nation, and often clandestinely, since the time of Ronald Reagan. I've known Juan 7 years. We've been in the same space many times. I've interviewed him probably 100 times. He made a visit here in Thailand. We talked till the sun came up. And bottom line is, Juan knows a thing or two about currencies and had his hands in serving under the Reagan administration during that period of time in collapsing the Russian ruble, which led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the war, according to Juan, the world according to Juan, the war in the financial realm is going to be the greatest of them all challenges. So those in retirement, those preparing for retirement, those blessed and fortunate enough to accumulate some assets, listen up. Brandon Clark focuses on retirement planning and is the founder of Triad Retire LLC. He has dedicated the majority of the past 15 years to serving his clients in insurance and financial needs. Triad Retire is committed to helping clients find the most effective means to establish both their living and lasting legacies nationwide. This is very important. We're going to be breaking things down. This is getting into sort of education and action when it comes to securing a guaranteed income you cannot outlive, and also what is an alternative place, rather those that are skittish on being invested in the stock market itself right now. How can you potentially get stock market type indexed returns without the downside risk? These two things we're going to talk about. Please welcome back Brandon Clark. Welcome back.
Happy to be here. Honored as usual. A great segment that you had prior. So happy to learn about that, and happy to be here to discuss how we can help people get secure in retirement.
Thank you. So there's a few things I want to break down here. Two things I'd like to talk about. We'll break them down one at a time. Before we discuss how to participate, as I mentioned a moment ago, in market index returns with zero downside risk, and of course there's pros and cons to all this, which we'll get to. But before we talk about that, and that should get people's attention, those that are conservative, those that really can't afford to lose money since the working years may largely be behind them. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, describe the... One moment. I want to get this straight. I'm looking at some talking points here, and I don't want to confuse myself. If I do, I'll definitely confuse the public. So there's two things to talk about. The fixed indexed annuity and securing a guaranteed income. And these are different ways of using these products, different things. Describe the chassis of the fixed indexed annuity. This is for people that are looking for market index gains without the downside risk. Talk with us about that chassis, how that works, the moving parts, and the pros and cons, risks and rewards. Listen up, folks. Take it away, Brandon.
And to back up a little bit, when I meet with someone for retirement, think about scaling Mount Everest. You have built the funds over your career. You've grown them, it may have taken you 5 years, it may have taken you 30 years, but you've grown them. You've stressed about growing your funds for retirement. So what we're doing is we are making sure that you're coming down safely from the mountain. They actually say that I think like 80% of people that die climbing Mount Everest die on the way down because everybody's thinking about going up, but they don't plan on coming down. So just to give you a backdrop there, my main goal is to help people as they're in retirement, lower stress, and have peace of mind. And so the fixed indexed annuity, what it does is it allows someone that has a 401k, an IRA, funds from wherever account you do have those and you've built them up for retirement, to put a portion, and it's usually a portion depending on how much someone has. I'm a very big advocate of having growth on one side and having a portion in a secure area, either to provide a guaranteed stream of income for life in addition to Social Security if you don't have a pension, or it may just be that you've grown that over years of time and you said, I want to keep growing it, but I don't want to have a chance of it losing. I'll be very upfront that the vehicle allows you to grow your money. We're looking at a bond alternative. We're looking at something that's 5 to 8% growth long term with zero chance of loss. There are some that definitely do have returns better than that, but that's our goal here, is to make sure that at the end of every day, no matter if World War III occurs, your funds have not gone down. So the main reasons that people do the fixed indexed annuity, like I said, is for a growth that cannot go down. We have plans that have absolutely zero fees. There's no advisory fees for those. And then also, if somebody wants to turn a lump sum into a stream of income that cannot end.
Excellent. So stay within the realm of this fixed indexed annuity. And to our viewers, I used to be a financial advisor, retired from that around 08, 09, transitioned the business and moved into some other things, which brought me to where I sit here today doing what I do. So I know a thing or two about it, but competition and innovation within the industry has changed significantly. Brandon and I chatted the other day, on the phone. So to be clear, what you're saying in this fixed indexed annuity, there's different components, different places to put the money for different purposes. One is index growth. The other is for future income. And you have the ability through various contractual options to work within these structures to meet the goals of a client. Let's talk about let's talk about how they can do that. Indexed growth, like for example, if the market does. And by the way, folks, are we expecting a market crash? A lot of folks say we are. Some say maybe not. But most people are saying we're going to have a purposely driven collapse to help usher in the new systems and so forth. But we also know, for following President Trump, we're going to have some incredible stock market years a little bit down the line. Once this thing just reset is done, Between oil and gas exploration, between AI and robotics, between all the foreign countries investing back here in America, Trump being brilliant in knowing how to make money for this country, the sovereign wealth fund, we're the richest nation on God's earth, and that's going to be shown, revealed, and lived soon in this golden age. So let's look at this fixed indexed annuity in worst case scenarios, which are coming, and best case scenarios, which are coming. Walk through in simple terms the mechanics of that. If Joe Q. Public has $100,000 in his or her fixed indexed annuity, and they got in there, and lo and behold, the markets crashed as soon as they got in there, what happens to that $100,000 during that contract year?
And an example of this would be, say, 2022, where the overall market was down around 20%. The money in the annuity may not return anything that year, but it will not go down. It's a stair-step approach. It's like when you're walking up the stairs, you continue to walk up. You might just not get as big of a growth in that year, but then the next year it locks in each year. A lot of the fixed index annuities do have a fixed account portion where, say, we will put 25% that will gain 3% automatically, 75% will be towards the S&P 500 linked index. So you're trying to get those 7 to 8% gains or higher. And I'm very upfront with showing each person, what the mechanics are of the plan. Because if someone's meeting me and they don't need income, then there are annuities that we're not going to show them. If they do need income versus just growth, and I have a lot of people I meet that say, I've built this money up, I just don't want it to go down. In those cases, it's a perfect product for them because they still may have money in savings and CDs in the market, in other growth areas and accessible areas. Pretty much every fixed index annuity I do allows someone to pull out 10% a year, penalty-free. It is a contractual agreement between a person and an insurance company. And so the insurance company says, this is based on a 10-year surrender charge. So they invest based on a 10-year surrender charge. So if someone does call and say, I need all my money in 4 years, yes, there are fees, charges with that. All of these go into what we talk about during the meeting. I always meet with someone first. I give them upfront income information or growth information based on what's happened in the last 10 years, for example. We don't know how the markets will go going forward, so we give projections of that. Also, I am a very big believer in the bucket strategy approach, and I think that's why the Wealth Coach University modules work so well with me, because we're talking about precious metals, we're talking about crypto, we're talking about different other assets, the market that people have their money in, and I think that's very good to be diversified in those ways. But if someone has retired and they say, okay, I have $4,000 of fixed expenses approximately, and I can show them how we can put a portion of funds to get a monthly income plus their Social Security, so where they have $4,000 coming in, then they can use all their other assets for whatever they need, for variable expenses, for inflation, for growth. But they're prepared also when emergencies occur, but they also have the peace of mind that on the first of every month, those fixed expenses are covered. And if you can do that for someone, it also helps, with stress and anxiety after someone is used to getting paid for 30 years every month. And you put this in place for them, and it somewhat matches that. It may not be the same amount, but it covers those fixed expenses just to give them peace of mind and lower stress as they transition as well. So a lot of times I will meet with people, a year before they retire, or at some point before they retire, so we can make a plan, or once they retire, they already have, the preparation in place, and then we can make that plan for them coming down the mountain and enjoying retirement and being able to do the things they want to do, and not have to think all the time about how am I going to pay for that bill, or am I going to need to sell this to pay for that bill, or move things around. Try to make things easy for them.
Out there, and I'm going to follow up with components of that for additional clarity for myself and for our viewers. So, broadly speaking, you've got three components, probably more, but three components inside the fixed index contract. One component with a fixed rate. If the storm is heavy and it looks like the markets may have come down, they have come down, let's say, it looks like that may continue, and they want to, even though they can't lose that 100,000, we'll go back to that example, but they'd like to make some money on it. So you might move some or all of it into the fixed bucket, option available, where they may pay 2, 3, or 4% interest. Good. So no loss is the common theme here. No loss. Second is you have those that are looking for growth beyond zero or growth beyond that fixed rate, the indexing it, as you stated before, to the, say, for example, S&P 500, which is the broadest index. You get all that exposure without any downside risk. However, folks, if let's do the reversed example, Brandon, and you can comment on it, is let's say that, now the markets, they've collapsed, and we got the big rebound, Trump's building the economy up, markets are going through the roof, we've got, perhaps a trending number of years of great growth. Let's say the S&P, that contract year for your client, in that year, the S&P did 25%. The client's not going to get 25%. There's your trade-off in exchange for zero loss and zero risk. So they might be capped out at 6, 8, or 10%. There's various different ways that that's done. Can you comment on just that aspect for a moment? Then I want to move us into the income side.
Yes, and for example, just a clear-cut example would be there's some contracts I know that have a zero floor, so you can't lose if the market went down 50%. But has a 10% cap. So if the market does go up 25%, they're going to get 10% in that year. As I've said multiple times, and I'll continue to repeat to anyone that I meet, this is not for all the funds. So a lot of people say, I don't want to put something in something that will cap me, but we want to floor you as well. We don't want to allow you to lose money. And people that are wealthy are gaining money every year, 4 years. Like Warren Buffett, I think his most favorite quote is, don't lose money. And so the reason that he makes it every year, it's not the fact that for 60 years he's made some exorbitant amount of percentage. He just makes money every year and it compounds on itself. So if someone can know that they're not going to have any losses and continue to grow the money every year, after 10 years, your money may be the same as if you did the seesaw. Now, these past couple of years have been very good, these last three for the S&P 500. Actually, the last 10-year period has been very good. I would say a big portion of that is probably due to inflation. But at the same time, I want that to happen going forward as well, because anyone that has their money in a fixed index annuity is going to do better when the market does better. On the other side of things, if you do a income-based annuity, the money does grow in the background in your accumulation the same way while you're getting the payouts occurring. So your money grows, it continues to grow, and then you have that lifetime income in place. So it's the same like chastity or same, and I am very big on this, that annuities get a bad name because of the person, I will say, that put that annuity in place many times, not because of the actual annuity itself. They're not explaining it. They're not going over the reason you're doing it. Like if I meet somebody that's 59 and says, I want all growth. I won't, I'm fine with losing all my money. Well, that person's not for me, unless they want to, put 25% into something that they can't lose money, or 50%, and then put the other 50% into a risky area. And the bucket strategy, as I've mentioned, is very important in that aspect, because what it does is if you have 50% in a fixed indexed annuity or in an area that can't lose, and we do have a large market downturn, it also allows you to have, say, a year or two to gain that money back. So you can potentially never pull money at a loss. In 2008, the market went down 50%. The reason it hurt people so bad is not because it went down 50%, it's because people needed the money for bills or for medical reasons or for whatever. Their business wasn't doing good. They had to pull money out. So not only did they have the 50% loss, they made that loss worse by pulling the money out. Whereas if they had money in, say, a guaranteed income stream during a downturn, that guaranteed income stream is going to continue the same. If they had some money in a growth area that cannot lose, you can pull money from that. I know a lot of people have money in CDs, and people have money in money market accounts, those types of areas as well, obviously. So you want to make sure and have money in those areas and have money in a growth area so you can get through a downturn in retirement. But it really depends on people's risk profile. Like I said, I've met many people who may have $1 million. They have a lot of money. They have plenty of money to retire, but they're just not a risky person. And they say, let's put this in an area that won't lose. So I do have a cap on it. But if the downturn occurs, I'm not going to lose my money. And that helps people sleep at night, especially in these times with inflation and high prices and all of those going on. The least we can do is plan so they can be prepared when those things happen.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to recap two things you just educated us on. One is back to that example. Put 100,000 in. The market did well. It earned 30%. You got capped at say 10%. You got 110,000 now. Okay. Market goes down the next year. You still have your 110,000, correct?
Correct.
Gains locked in? Okay, that's an important point to note, folks, because as Brandon just mentioned, the statistics, the stats of the last 10 years have been some of the best market years ever, all right? And so now that's not going to go on forever. In fact, we're anticipating a crash. When that crash comes, those people, if they were in this indexed annuity over these years, they got to keep their gains, albeit capped, but, for a conservative investor. I want to kind of back out a little bit, and you alluded to this. You talk with your clients about their risk tolerance, their tax bracket, their objectives, their age, their income needs, growth income, so forth and so on. And then you're independent. You're licensed with the top carriers. You can choose from those best companies, the best products to meet that client's needs. And you'll present them, illustrations from computers and so forth, projections of what it might look like down the line. I want to come back out and say, you mentioned this earlier, Wealth Coach University. I did a master class with Dr. Joseph Peck's Empower 2000 organization that I went into great detail, not so much the detail that you've gone into on the annuity, but great detail on getting out of the system, GOOTS model, GOOTS. And for those that missed that opportunity through Dr. Peck's organization to buy the master class and all the follow-up group consults that I did with folks, you can go, shorter version of it, to wet your whistle, is wealthcoachuniversity.com, 10 free video modules. Module, I forget which one it is, perhaps 4 or 5, understanding annuities. Guaranteed income, I think, is what it's called. You want to look at that, but you can, and it's a quick tutorial, and then just give Brandon a call for those that are interested in learning more about getting market index growth without the downside. And again, let's highlight the trade-off for that. There's no free lunch. The trade-off is you're not going to get all the growth. Hey, your friend got 25%. You got 10, but you slept well at night. Okay, when he loses his 25%. So the point is that's the trade-off. The other trade-off you talked about before, you called it a surrender charge, perhaps a 10-year surrender charge. Folks, you're getting into a 10-year contract in exchange for the peace of mind and or the guaranteed income you can never outlive aspect. The trade-off is not all the growth. You're not going to get it all. You get some of it, but it's yours, won't be taken away. And you're also locked in for, say, 10 years with limited liquidity. 10% perhaps is what you can get. But that's why having the consult with Brandon is important. And Brandon, by the way, has got people looking at the business he submits. It's called a compliance officer. There's compliance divisions that will look at his fact-find sheets to make sure to double check that this is in fact suitable for you. So all the checks and balances are there. And Brandon, of course, has been in this a long time. He's a specialist. I'll do a simple analogy. If a person is sick with a cough and a cold, particularly old school, you go to your general practitioner doctor, and he or she's going to give you a prescription for that cold. But if you have a heart attack, you're not going to the general practitioner to get service. You're going to the cardiologist because it's an area of specialty that you need help in. That's what Brandon does. Retirement planning. Very, very important. He's an expert in this area. And again, I know a thing or two about this because I lived in Brandon's world for almost 15 years. And it is very important. I focused my practice when I was a financial advisor on estate and retirement planning. And but the products have changed dramatically, and Brandon is on top of that. So let's close out our segment. We'll spend more time on it next time you visit with us here. But you've spoken about within the fixed indexed annuity, there's a component available for income. And so what I'd like to also talk about is there's another annuity called a immediate annuity, we used to call it, where someone just says, listen, I've got all the other bases covered. I've got my gold and silver as my inflation hedge. I've got, people with a lot of money. I'm over here in the market. I'm willing to put some risk over here. I've got my crypto, but I'm looking for my guaranteed income. I just want to get that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month guaranteed income. I want to pass a guaranteed income to a surviving spouse or beneficiary. Talk a bit about that, where a lump sum comes in and it just serves the purpose of spitting out income. Spend a moment on that, and then we'll conclude.
Yeah, and it really depends on what the person needs. So if you have all your other, areas covered and you need the income, we take a lump sum, put it into a credential, for example, and then you start that monthly income the following week after. You can either do it monthly or you can do it annual after you put it there, and it's guaranteed for life. You can do it based on one person. You can do it based on you and a spouse. And that's part of what the planning is that I do. Like if, for example, if someone says, well, I actually can wait 1 year, or I can wait 3 years, then we can project and tell them exactly what they're going to get, and it's going to be more because they're able to defer and have guaranteed like 8-9% roll-ups on their funds. So I just want to make sure people know that we will mirror it to what you need. For example, even on the growth side, you mentioned 10-year fixed index annuities. They actually have 5-year ones now that are good and have an upfront bonus, and it has half the time for people. So there's very good plans in both sides that we can fit for each person. I help people just in 2 of the other areas with Roth IRA conversions over multi-years of time, so you don't get a big tax hit at one time. We spread it out over 7 years. Also, I help people find, a trust company to use for other assets, and I think John does that too as well. But we really work together to make sure that you have all your bases covered, and so you can be comfortable and prepared. But yes, the most vanilla annuity there is, probably the original one that was created from the Roman Empire, was where somebody came to someone and said, I have a lump sum, I will give that to you if you'll pay me monthly for the rest of my life. And that's very easy to do, and we're glad to help you do that. And I, as an independent agent, one of the things I love is I have an assistant, a team that shops based on what the person needs. There are what are called single premium immediate annuities, which are called SPIAs. Also, there are fixed indexed annuities that allow for immediate income. So we look at every type, and whichever one's going to pay out the most for that person is the one we choose.
Thank you. And in conclusion, I want our audience to know we're going to sign Brandon off in a moment, and then I'm going to come back with 3 very specific action items and an important announcement. But before we do, in closing this very important segment out, I want to bring our attention to the Goots model. Get out of the system. Remember, the subtitle of the show is Surviving and Thriving the Transition. If you've been fortunate enough, you worked hard enough, you've been blessed, you've been a good steward of that money, you need to continue to be a good steward of that money. You've got to put it somewhere. And right now we're in the danger zone. And I talk about that in the modules that are free on wealthcoachuniversity.com. But at the end of the day is a few bucket approach to getting out of the system. A bucket for income, which we've discussed here, and that is annuities. You're looking for interest income off of bonds right now. It could be the kiss of death with the bond mess that we've talked about on previous broadcasts. This is where the annuity world comes in. So in the bucket approach, in the get out of the system model that I created, you've got an income bucket, you've got tax deferred growth bucket, you've got hedge bucket, your gold and silver, bullion only, tangible. You've got crypto to look at, the 9 ISO compliant ones. And so you can learn more about get out of the system education and modules by visiting wealthcoachuniversity.com. And you can access my resource network, Bill Armour on the gold and silver. Go to my website, click on the link, he'll give you a free consult. Buyer beware. So get the education first. Same thing in annuity world, buyer beware. Contact Brandon, also part of my resource network. The phone number's been up on the screen the whole time. If you're listening on a Spotify or audio somewhere, it's 336-265-7263. Point is, I'm doing my action segment now. Let me get to that in a moment. But Brandon Clark is a good guy who can take care of you. Tap him. And if you already own annuities, but it wasn't the right annuity, or it was the right annuity, but they've changed, you've had it many years, he can do an annuity analysis, do what's called a tax-free 1035 exchange, get you into the right one today. Lots of things that can be done. So annuity owners, contact Brandon. People looking for safe growth, tax-deferred safe growth, and or guaranteed income. This is the guy you want to speak to. So thank you, Brandon Clark, for being here with us. 336-265-7263. Brandon usually is on the broadcast at least once a month here, and will remain so because I consider it a very important component, not for everyone, but for many people in the Goots model. So thank you, Brandon, for being here. We're going to sign off with this brief announcement. I'll be right back with 3 action items and an important announcement. Thank you, sir.
Module 2 is the cornerstone of content in the Wealth Coach University. In this module, you will learn just how to Goots, get out of the system, resulting in the confidence you need to protect and preserve your financial assets through this transition. This is the danger zone. The cost of inaction or wrong action may be the regret of a lifetime.
What an exciting time to be alive. The dawning of the golden age is upon us. Goots, Goots, get out of the system now. Action on your behalf is required. Be on the right side of history. Please visit all 10 free modules at wealthcoachuniversity.com and schedule your private one-on-one Wealth Coach consult with me, John Michael Chambers. I look forward to meeting with you. It's time. You know, sometimes a green screen can create an egg-shaped head, especially when you don't have much hair like me. And with those Poindexter glasses, What a tough image of myself to look at. Pardon me. But anyway, the message is clear. Get out of the system. And saving America and securing your assets is not a spectator sport. It requires action, and action does change things. So again, 3 action items. Give Brandon Clark a call if you're looking for tax-deferred safe growth for some of your money. Or looking for guaranteed income that you can never outlive. And there's multiple ways that can be structured, even when the person passes. Income, money and principal or income can continue to others. Brandon Clark, you know how to reach him for annuity review and consultation. Bill Armour, action item. How can people reach out to Bill Armour? You know the phone number. It's up on our site. Visit jmcgenesismetals.com and give Bill Armour a call. Mention my name. Get a free consult. It's a buyer beware market. It's cowboys and Indians out there. Don't take my word for it right here. Spend a little time on the module, understanding precious metals, where I provided some of those things for you. Also, your advisor scorecard is available for you at wealthcoachuniversity.com. These are action items, but it requires your effort, a little bit of time. Again, garbage in, garbage out. Be a good steward of what you've accumulated, and I'm trying to just lead you to places to help you with that. Let's see where else. Wealth Coach Consult is the last action item. I'm available for you as a wealth coach to, for those particularly that have a lot going on. You've accumulated money, you've got accounts all over the place, you're awake, you're alert, you're aware, and you just need some assistance to navigate the minefields. That's where I come in as a wealth coach, consult, and coach. I don't sell investments. I don't manage money. I don't give specific investment advice. I will act as a coach and a consultant privately on a Zoom screen to talk with you. I can do only 8 appointments a month. Some months I'm maxed out. Some months a little less. That's right now, which is good for you if you're interested. So visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. There's a mechanism with which to reach me. We're having some tech issues there, I'm told right now, which I should be resolved very quickly. If you're having any difficulty in getting access to me for a private wealth coach, I want you to email Sandy. Here's the email address, Sandy Media Warrior at proton.me. Sandy Media Warrior at proton, PROTON.me, M-E. And if the structure to book the appointment with me